Hi, everybody. Thank you for tuning in again to my show, Wizard of House by Mr. T. And today I have another great guest, and I'm really appreciative of all these folks that coming to my show, taking the time out of their day. And what we're going to talk about today is a little spooky stuff. Roaches, termites, ants, anything you can think of. The little no-see-ums, the little ghost ants, all this stuff. I have Imperial Pest Prevention owner-operator John here with me. I'm going to turn the mic over to him, and we're going to ask him a lot of questions, and we're going to learn about pests and where they come from, where they hide, how we kill them, what happens when it rains, why do we get all this stuff. So, John, thank you for coming. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you
really
for having
appreciate
me.
it.
I do
sure,
appreciate
you're
it.
welcome. Thanks for coming.
My name is Jonathan Stoddard, and yes, I am the certified entomologist as well as the certified operator for Imperial Pest Prevention. I typically hold all of our categories of licensing for the company, and we are a full-service company. We do everything from lawn spraying, termite control, wood-destroying organism inspections, as well as full-range pest control. We provide services for typically through Volusia County, Flagler County, and we even go into Sanford a little bit, and even as far north as St. Augustine for certain accounts.
Very nice.
Cover quite a span.
I've seen you grow, John. Can you tell us, when did you start this? I think I was there when you started.
You were.
I remember, I still am, but I remember you were doing my inspections a while ago. I can't even guess, but it's been a while, right?
It has been. It has been. I do remember the first time that I met you, and I remember you brought that to my attention. You said, "Oh, you're new. I don't recall seeing you." So, that's been quite some time now. That would be back in 2012, I believe, is when I had first started. So, it's been a journey.
It seems longer because he's grown so much in 10 years. I remember it was just you and a couple of guys.
That's correct.
And now you're really expanded. I've noticed you've grown your business. Now you're doing the spraying, you're doing regular pests, you're doing the termites. You're an expert in all these fields.
Well, I appreciate that.
And explain to us what this entomologist.
Well, entomologist is basically someone who's just furthered their education. Entomology is a loose term. It can go as severe as, people that study bugs for homicides, and gestation periods of insects on certain things for decaying bodies, or it could be as simple as household pest management, which is typically what mine is. It's more for controlled environments of
But you don't have to have it to own this company, for example. You don't.
No, that is not required.
Something extra that you went out and.
That is correct. Yes, that is not something that is a requirement. Basically, for a pest control company, typically most guys will have what's called a certified operator license. And in pest control here in Florida, there's different categories of operation for pest control. Typically, you have one license if you're going to do general pest control. There's another license if you're going to do lawn spraying or shrub spraying. Wow. There's another license if you're going to perform subterranean termite treatments. And then there's another license. The last one is for if you are going to perform tent fumigations for drywood termites. So typically, each category, a pest control company doesn't necessarily have to have each and every one of those licenses, but for the particular field they want to service, then they're going to have that particular license. Or
so even if you sub out the tenting, you still need to have a license for that, or because I know some of the companies have another company that comes.
Yeah, and basically the way that it works with that is when you do tent fumigation, a lot of the times the companies that do tent fumigation, the actual services, they are typically going to they're typically going to be wholesalers for pest control companies. It's just a way that they typically generate more revenue for themselves, but without competing with the market. So a lot of the times they'll offer a wholesale listing to a pest control company. Now, if you hold the termite certification of tent fumigation as a pest control company, then you can use your own paperwork as the sale portion of it for the clients. If you subcontract it, then basically those companies are listed as basically salesmen underneath that termite company. So that's really
guys, what we're talking about, just to go back, is John's company does several things. One thing is if they find, like, for example, like drywood termites, that's like one of the worst kinds you can get. They're like, you can't pinpoint where they are. They move around, right? Something like that. It's
pretty much.
And in order to make sure they're gone, because a lot of times these companies cannot guarantee, they may give you a bond, but so you have to put that big tent. I don't know if anybody has seen it. They tent the whole house, and you have to basically stay out of the house for a few days. And they come in and fumigate it with strong stuff, and it kills any kind of termites supposed to kill.
That's correct.
So once that's fumigated, and I've seen it done, I've had friends do it, and I know it's even dangerous. If you walk in there, you could
yes,
harm yourself.
It 100% is. That basically, out of all of the labels of pest control products that are used, that one is a deadly gas. It will kill anything that is alive, whether it be plants, animals, or even humans.
So one of the biggest things, guys, when we sell a home, we have several different inspections depending on what a buyer has experienced before or is requesting. So if a buyer had a bad experience before with a pool, he's going to want like a thorough pool inspection, for example. So, but, almost like 10 out of 10, whether the home is block, frame, if it's a 1950 frame, or if it's a 2020 block, we recommend you do a separate full home inspection, and usually your home inspector or somebody orders or asks you if you want a termite inspection. So, and it doesn't exactly entail just looking for termites. They also look for, wood fungus and which is also a live organism, which will go into what we call a wood destroying organism report. And that's where John's company or any other pest company, they have the standard, is that state approved form or?
That is a regulated form by the Department of Agriculture.
Regulated form, they all look the same. They'll come through the house, they tap on, I've seen them with flashlights.
Sure.
They're like, little detectives.
Right.
And it's not just that they're looking just for termites, okay? They're looking for any kind of a leak that has caused wood rot, wood decay, and then there's a live organism that's still continuing to eat at the wood or causing a bigger and bigger decay.
Sure.
And so sometimes you see the inspector hasn't seen it, and John comes out of the attic and say, hey, there's a leak at the soffit in that corner of the house, and everybody has missed it. But these guys go through, right? So, explain to us some of that procedure.
Sure.
And then we're going to get into other services you provide.
Okay.
But, I'm more real estate, so I just, I wanted to explain to the buyers that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so once he goes through, if he finds drywood termite and the buyer is like freaking out or the seller is freaking out, what? Drywood termite. Yeah. So we have subterranean, we have drywood. I'm going to let John get into that because it's not my field. Sure. I'm just talking based on what I've seen. And go ahead, John. Just tell us the differences and whatever you can inform the viewers. I appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. A wood-destroying organism is an inspection. A wood-destroying organism inspection is an inspection that is not just for typically going to be termites. There's 5 things in the state of Florida that are categorized as wood-destroying organisms. That's primarily going to be wood decaying fungus, which is a very loose term. Wood decay fungus is like saying a Toyota. There's a bunch of different strain, different varieties, but it's categorized, just lumped into that. And wood-destroying fungus is basically the presence of moisture or the past tense of moisture that has affected the wood to a certain period of time where it has degraded it. So typically a lot of times you can find that, as common areas as door frames. Garage pedestrian door frames are very common. It can also be an occurrence from a roof leak. It can be an occurrence from, gutters not draining properly or siding too low to the ground where soil starts to engulf it. So that's one of the main organisms that are found on that inspection. There's also 2 types of termites that are looked for on that inspection. There's going to be subterranean termites, and then there's also drywood termites.
So that, again, not to cut him off, but this is everything he's talking about is that termite inspection that you order for your home as a separate inspection. You have the home inspection and a termite inspection. And if you ask any realtor, they're going to tell you, oh yeah, I recommend you do that. It's a small cost. But, they actually go in the attic and they find roof leaks that the roofer or the inspector doesn't find. I've noticed that with you guys.
Right. Well,
so go ahead. We're still talking about termite inspections, which the result of all of that goes on a WDO report, Wood Destroying Organism report.
That is correct.
Go ahead.
And that is a state mandated report. It's the Department of Agriculture that actually regulates pest control companies, and they are the ones that put together that form. Like I was saying, there's also 2 types of termites that you can encounter here in Florida that can also be found and can be listed on that report. And that's going to be subterranean termites, and then there's also drywood termites. And there's a major difference between the 2. They're both silent destroyers. They try to stay hidden, and most people really don't discover that they have a termite problem until they have a much bigger problem because they stay hidden. It's typically when it reaches the swarm season or damage has become so prevalent for so long that it starts to show itself through, like on baseboards, trim boards, walls, etc. Subterranean termites, they come from the ground up. They have to have constant earth contact at all times. So basically they build with shelter tubes and they, pass through small cracks, crevices. There's really no rhyme to the reason of why they pop up. But typically moisture is usually one of the main things that they're going to be attracted to. The other termite is drywood termite, and drywood termite is different. They may look alike, but with drywood termites, they actually pull all of the moisture and the food source directly from the wood itself. So they actually colonize directly in the wood itself. That's why there's a different type of treatment for them.
So it's not coming from the ground.
They are not coming from the ground.
They're coming from...
Well, they swarm. All of them will swarm at certain times of the year.
Yeah. Which is March to June, or what was the dates?
Typically for subterranean termites are usually going to swarm earlier in the year. Now, it can vary. It can vary depending upon weather temperatures and so forth.
There's a popular season, though, right?
Absolutely.
Months.
For subterranean termites, they're usually going to start to swarm. It can be as early as like February or March. Okay. They like it when it starts getting from where it's cooler and we start getting spikes of warm temperatures. Okay. Whereas the drywood termites are typically going to swarm in the evening, and they usually are going to be in your summer months. Rainy months, afternoon thunderstorm months, that's typically when you're going to find them a little bit more.
Oh, okay. Great to know.
Absolutely.
And what does I'm not going to hold it to you, because if somebody's watching this 10 years from now, the prices have changed.
Sure, they certainly have.
As of September 20th, 2022, today, what is a termite cost for let's say an average size home, or does it matter what size? Well,
it can vary depending upon the structure, the layout of the structure. For a subterranean termite treatment, if there's a lot of slabs, located around it, then typically you have to do drilling, which is more labor intensive. For a home of a normal standard, 3-bed, 2-bath home, you're typically looking right around $600 for a subterranean treatment.
Really?
For a tent fumigation, that's a whole different ballgame right there, because that depends upon your landscape, the pitches of the roof, the type of roof that you have. There's a lot of variables that play a part in that. But typically, ballpark, they're usually right around $2,500 to $3,000 for a normal-size home.
And the inspection costs?
An inspection, typically for like a private inspection, they're right around like $125.
Okay.
A lot of times when we work with a lot of different home inspectors, sometimes we'll sharpen the pencil a little bit for them because they provide a lot of business. And they'll pass that on to their to their clients as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, ballpark right about $125 for a normal inspection.
So, guys, one of the biggest misconceptions, and a lot of my buyers say that, and they're like, oh, I have a block home, so I don't need an inspection. And we all know that that's not true. And I'm going to explain to John. I'm sure he's seen a lot more than me, but I've seen termites in block homes.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're they don't discriminate.
Yeah.
It doesn't
How did
matter.
they get in, John? Just tell us. How did they?
Well, there's a lot of different locations. I mean, how they can get in. As far as subterranean termites go, here in Florida, we're on a very sandy soil. So naturally, the slabs, they shift. They get cracks in them. I mean, you can look at most driveways around anywhere and you'll see it. Well, it's no different than what's going on underneath the home in your living space, So they can pass through locations like that.
But they used to spray the dirt before they poured the slab, right?
Yeah, that's a requirement.
Still do that?
That's a
I know some
pre-treatment.
people are not. I heard the codes changed and they're doing something different, I heard.
That's a whole different discussion. But yes, pre-treatments are still required by law in Florida before a home is built. And typically, for the most part, a lot of them are going to be spraying the soil with their termiticide. And then from there, the person comes in, pours the concrete, and then the home starts being built. There is locations and there is different advances in technology where sometimes they don't necessarily do that on the slab portion. They'll do it on the framing stage. And it's typically they're going to use what's called a borate, which is a product that they'll spray about waist height down on all of the exposed studs. So you might be referring to that.
Oh, yes.
Because there is different treatments. But primarily, for the most part, majority of them are going to be a surface spray of the soil. Yeah,
so they spray the soil, guys. If you notice, like you see they've like a plastic over the dirt. They've sprayed that termite over the dirt.
Correct.
And then they cover it with the plastic, and then they pour the concrete.
That is correct. And you are exactly right. Now, a pre-treatment, which is what we described as being the spraying portion of the soil, that varies. It's a very loose term. To meet that according to, a builder or specifications of the city, whatever it is that the home is being built in, there's a lot of different products. And some products are very, inferior and compared to others and don't quite last as long. So a lot of times when a builder is having something done, they want to try to keep the cost down. Everybody wants to try to keep the cost down. And a lot of times you might not get a product that lasts as long as some others. There is some products that are out there that will last 10 years, 7 years, but there's certain products as well that will only last a couple years. And obviously cost comes into a matter of that.
And they don't spray under the driveway, do they?
Typically, no. It's usually going to be underneath the main part of the structure, or if somebody adds onto their structure, if they're going to have a slab that abuts up to that structure, then that would be required to be sprayed as well.
So, guys, I have one experience that I never forget. I've got a few of them, actually.
I'm sure you probably do by now.
But there was a home I had sold in this area, concrete block home, mint condition. I mean, you could, as they say, you could eat off the floors. And that's exactly what the termites were doing. So I was doing a walkthrough, and I went into the bathroom just before the closing. And as I was coming out of this main bath, I looked in the tub and I saw ant-looking stuff laying in the tub.
Right.
I'm like, oh, what are ants doing here? How did the ants get in? So I get to take a closer look. Now, most people walk out, they're like, oh, the house is empty. Just ants got in. And then I see wings on them. I take a picture of that and I send it to the inspector. And he says, Lee, those are termites. I'm like, what do you mean? So this is like there's a closing like happening in like 2 days. And the house was vacant, so I immediately contacted the owners. The owners brought a termite company. And sure enough, you won't believe what happened. Apparently the termites were in the closet that was adjoining the tub. Right. And they had come in through some window or crack or whatever. They ate their way through the closet, under the tub. So in Florida, when they drop a tub in, they frame it with wood studs. And they had gotten under the tub. They were eating all that wood. And they were coming up through the drain.
Where the plumbing is.
And that's where they were laying there when I saw them. So we had to cut that wall open, spray it all.
Right.
Give the buyer a bond for whatever it is, 2 years.
Right.
And then went to the closing. So we paid for a 2-year bond and gave them a clean bill of health, closed the wall up, repaired everything. Right. And this is where, and then sometimes people have plants, I guess. You can tell me about plants, mulch, the stuff that's so close to the house. They go, all right.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. Like I said, I have seen instances before where they've passed up through the plumbing, especially on a monolithic slab home, which is a solid pour slab.
Is what we have here.
Exactly. Your plumbing lines run directly up from that, and they're insulated, and they sweat over a course of time, and that can attract
moisture,
termites. Exactly, and they can just pass right up through that. I've also seen, when you were talking about block homes, I've even seen newer construction homes where they have passed in between the block and shot straight up to the attic locations and not even shown signs of anything on the inside before.
Unbelievable.
So there's really no rhyme to reason of how they can show up. But yes, different choices of landscape on the exterior of the home can also play a part. Mulch is your least ideal substrate to put around the outside. It holds moisture. Obviously, it's wood, and it can decay, especially if somebody puts potted plants on top of it, bird baths, things of that sort. I always tell people, if they like the look of mulch nowadays, they have recycled tires that look just like mulch. They last for a long time. They hold up well. Moisture still sifts through them well. But gravel and rock, by far, in my opinion, is the best to put around for the best drainage.
A little
and
more
so forth.
costly, but it's a one-time thing. And yeah, I just got rid of all my mulch at my house.
Did you?
And put, did this gravel, and it's beautiful, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be a pain if you go change plants, but it just looks like, always it looks well maintained, like you just moved in.
Absolutely.
So that's all about termites, guys. So they're not, they're invisible pretty much. An expert can see them. And I've been shocked, because I usually do my own little walkthrough and I can catch things, but that's one thing that I cannot catch is the termites. They just show up, and all of a sudden you think that's just a little wood decay, and these guys come with their equipment or flashlights or their eyes or however you do it, and they poke a little more, and they see eggs, they see wings. Right? I've been there where there's wings because they were swarming.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. One of the things with a wood destroying organism inspection is, a lot of people don't understand, it's a visible inspection. It's a visible inspection of what you can see at the time of the inspection. So a lot of the times when you do an inspection, you're basing it upon what is visibly able to be seen, from along the exterior to the interior walls, to any of the locations in the attic that are also visible. And I can't tell you how many times when you finish your inspection, and you tell someone, hey, really nice looking place, I didn't really see any signs of anything. The first thing that people put that in their mind is, oh, great, no termites. And it's not really a guarantee that there's not. It just means that there's not anything visibly able to be seen. So a lot of times people underestimate the importance of a termite treatment, because that's what works on an invisible level 24 hours a day, 365 days a year to help protect that home, So that's why I always try to let people know, the inspection's great. It's a wonderful inspection to have. But
it's really, so one more thing I'm going to talk about is, okay, if you want to get your home covered, it's like another insurance, really. There's different kinds of coverage termite companies offer. They have repair, repair bond.
Correct.
And sometimes they just have treat, and all they do is they treat it, and you get to repair it. And I see that a lot with drywood termites.
Right.
They'll say, "We'll come back, and if you get drywood termites, we're not gonna repair any. We're just gonna come and treat it, and the repair is on you." But most common termites in Florida is really mostly subterranean termites, I guess. Am I right? Or is it 50-50 now? It used to be the main concern.
It was. And there's been a lot of advances in technology with treatments. And a lot of these treatments really work well for subterranean termites.
Do you like those bait stations? I I've heard good and bad.
Yeah.
Where there's a way. So there's two ways, right, to do.
Correct.
Go ahead and tell us the two different or three different ways that you can treat
for subterranean termites.
For any,
And for subterranean termite treatments, typically it's usually going to be a liquid treatment, or there is instances where there is also bait stations that are put out. Now, in the older times of 70s, 80s, whatever, they were primarily always liquid treatments. And those treatments were very good. They worked extremely well, but they were very bad for the environment. They were very bad for the technicians that were applying them. So I can't remember exactly what year it was when they started doing the bait stations, but there was a time when some of those products were turning up in municipal water supplies, and the EPA started cracking down on some of them. And there was a time period where they had halted on some of those products that were used, and they started doing the bait stations. And the bait station is basically...
Oh, yeah. I remember that, actually.
Yeah. The bait station was something that was brought out as basically people still needed termite treatments, but lo and behold, you had to do something.
So no treatments, they just do the bait stations.
That's for a while there, they did come out with that. And those, when they first came out, they were basically pieces of slash pine that were installed inside of a baiting system. And they were put about every 10 feet around the structure. And typically they were monitored. They weren't really doing any protection. They were monitored. And throughout the course of time, if there was termite hits on there, they would take those pieces of the pine, put them into a chemical solution, put them back into the bait station. They would retreat back down underneath the ground, and they would kind of wish-wash that product back and forth. And
if I was a termite, I would eat that, and I'll move on to the next one, and I'll eat that.
Yeah. Well, that's why you have to. That's why it's on a monitoring station.
But I'm not a termite right now, not yet.
That's why they are on a monitoring station, because that can happen. That's why you have to come out a little more frequent instead of the annual like you do for the liquid treatment.
I didn't know that.
Because, they can consume that, and, you got one shot to catch them in the action to put them back in there to,
and
retreat.
then I seen them drill. That's the common one, right? They
Correct.
drill. Okay, so let's say you just buy a house. They've never had a termite plan before. Nobody knows if this house has been treated except the slab, whatever was done. So now you want to get a new bond with John or whoever, and you call them up and you say, "Hey, I want to get a termite bond." And they come out. If I guess you do both, or do you guys just do the?
No, we do both. It's really dependent upon. It's dependent upon the situation, the construction of the home. To be honest with you, if there's a lot of heavy roots or tree roots or something that's blocking or inhibiting, then sometimes we may go towards that route of the bait station versus the liquid treatment. There's also certain customers where they say, "You're not touching my home with that drill bit through that concrete," and they don't want that done.
That's true.
Because it's a liability. When you're drilling, you don't quite know what's underneath. You use care, but you are having somebody sign a release waiver stating, this can happen. So it's something that somebody has to outweigh. But we do provide different options for different clientele, and
so
try to meet their
just tell
needs.
us what you do. That you drill where?
Well,
and then give them a bond. Because
Right.
you have to do one or the other treatment before you can give them a bond.
That is correct. Yeah, typically with a subterranean termite treatment, for the most part, they're usually going to be liquid treatments. And basically surrounding the structure of the places of the locations where you have soil, those areas are going to be trenched back, and then the product's going to be pumped down. And the goal is to get the product enough to where it saturates enough to where it gets down underneath the footer. Obviously, on locations where you have a slab, guess what? You can't pick the slab up and spray it, so you have no choice. In order to keep that continuous barrier going, you typically are going to have to drill. Now, drilling doesn't always happen in all homes. Sometimes you can have an expansion joint from where the slab is, where you can maybe treat through that expansion joint at certain times. But there's instances where you can't do that, and you do have to drill. And typically the drilling, it's done with a hammer drill, and the holes are typically about the size of a nickel to a quarter, depending upon the size drill bit that somebody uses. And they're about every 12 inches apart, 12, 15 inches apart. And basically you drill through them. And then what you do is on your termite treatment rig, it has tools that can detach, that can reattach on there.
So where do you exactly drill? Like if you're on the side of this house, where would you drill? Like, do you go in the ground?
Yes, you're drilling through the slab until you just hit the soil, and at that point, as soon as you feel the give on the drill, that's when you immediately
But
back out.
how do you
don't
get
wanna
to
go
the
too
slab? I mean, when I have the stucco and get into the slab,
Right.
do you go horizontal or vertical?
Well, you're actually going to go vertical. Now,
Yeah.
now again, in older treatment methods, it used to be that you would actually have to drill through the block
Right.
horizontally on
Block,
that home.
okay.
But now with the newer technology and advances with the products and termiticides and pesticides, you can actually all do it directly down through the soil. Now, if you are required to drill nowadays through a slab, it's going to be vertical drilling. It's basically about about the technician's foot. If it's pinned up against the structure onto the slab, typically you're going to drill right about on the outside of where the foot is, and then you're going to, space it about every 12 to 15 inches.
Okay.
Try to keep it uniform, nice, clean, and, keep it professional looking. And then typically after you treat through those, there's an attachment. It's called it's a rod that basically attaches onto the end of the termite rig, and it has it's almost capped off to a point, and it has these inlay patterns that are in it. So when it's under pressure and you squeeze this handle for the rod, it shoots almost like a star-shaped pattern. So when you're in there, you're getting the product to saturate under the soil, and then basically that's how it's done. And then typically when you're done doing the treatment, you patch it up. There's typically like plastic plugs that you can go in there.
So between each drilling, you sprays and it kind of reaches each other.
Exactly.
And
It's
under.
doing everything underneath the slab.
Yeah.
Now, you might have some that spits up from there that you see come up on the top, but for the most part, everything's being done
So
underneath
if
that
I have
slab.
the
once you drill
slab
through
and
it.
then I have dirt, you go right there.
Exactly. Right through the concrete, break through, get to the soil, so that way the treatment can saturate the soil underneath that location. That's how you keep that consistent barrier around the full structure.
And that's about still like for an average home, like 600 for a 3-2 or
I would say yes.
something right now.
That's a safe number.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a
and then
home
you come
that's-
back every year, right?
That's correct. Yeah, and basically, just like the home has a WDO inspection when someone purchases it, you're kind of doing the same thing, except for it's not going on that report, but it's still kind of the same process. You're still checking the inside, the outside.
Do you do it as thorough? Probably not, right? Do you do it?
Well,
I mean, I've seen them come and go in 10 minutes.
I can't speak on behalf of all companies, but yes, you should be as thorough
You
as
should
what
be,
it
right?
is.
Go in the attic, go in the...
100%. Now, you're still not looking for wood decay, but, it's common
You're looking
nature.
for tunnels,
Right.
stuff from termites.
And it really depends upon the company. Some of your much larger companies, their staff may just be trained to do the renewals and not identify wood destroying, fungus, things of that sort. So that might be all that they elaborate on. But, in our company, everybody's kind of trained like a broken record. So a lot of times the guys that are doing the renewals are still doing the WDOs, and they're going to be versed enough to see something.
Nice.
I apologize. And, bring it to someone's attention if they see something, even if it's non-report related.
That's great. That's really good to know, because you could say, hey, I'm going to renew my termite. Can you guys also check for wood decay on my roof, for example? Yeah. And I don't know if that's extra or that's included. There's part of the...
It wouldn't be any extra.
because
wouldn't be any
it's
extra.
part of a termite inspection.
Right. It just
So,
wouldn't be
and your
documented.
renewals depends on the size, the square footage of the house. It could be 125, it could be 150, it could be I don't know. Your renewals.
Yeah, typically on renewals, with current pricing and so forth, they're usually been around 150 per year to keep that policy up and keep it.
Yeah, so basically you pay 600 or whatever it is for the major, establishing a bond with the company, and you have to continue that by bringing them back every year and paying that smaller fee so they will renew your bond.
That's correct.
As long as, so you don't, now, do you come back in 10 years or 5 years with these new products?
Yes.
And redo?
Requires the whole shebang over again. Yeah, just like everything, nothing lasts forever. So does reach a point in time where it does have to be reapplied.
Okay.
And one thing too, a lot of times, this is a question that I get a lot. People will have the termite treatment, and they think that you have to pay the renewal right up front with it. It's that first year is incorporated in that treatment price.
Okay.
So this $600 and something is the 1 year from that date before that starts to play effect.
Okay. So guys, we're done with the termites. Okay, now we're going to talk about my favorite pest, a roach. Because my wife, as soon as she sees a roach, you know what? It's the end of the world. So I have to almost call the fire department just to come over and calm her down. And I'm telling you, they are scary, they're nasty, and some of them have wings and they fly. Yeah. They're the palmettos, I guess, somehow end up in the house.
Right.
I know, the products have changed, and what happens? Like, we get a lot of rain, and then all of a sudden, and again, our house is spotless, thanks to my amazing wife who controls all of that. She's amazing. I tell you what, we still find, oh, look, there's a dead roach. Look, there's a, little ghost ants come out of nowhere, especially this time of the year.
Right.
A spider shows up. I mean, and I did not invite any of them. They just show up uninvited. So,
living rent free, huh?
Yeah. So what do we do?
Well, that's one thing that you were hitting on a lot on, and a lot of people have a misconception of pest control. They think that they have a service and that they spray and that's it. You're never going to see bugs. And that's not the case. Pesticides really don't stop insects from coming in. What it's meant to do is it's meant to disrupt their nervous system once they pass through a treated zone, and then within a certain hour of matter of time, depending upon the insect size, it affects them, and eventually they turn up, they belly up, and they're dead. Obviously, if you have something heavier like a palmetto bug, let's say, they're heavier, so it takes more time. So people sometimes can see them a little more frequent before they turn up and belly up. Oh
yeah.
A lot of times too.
I can make a movie, Killing Roaches, for you.
Yeah. So, and typically too, palmetto bug is technically an American roach. That's really technically what they are. They're not a matter of that somebody's done something wrong to become untidy or unclean. It happens. It happens in my own home occasionally from time to time, but yes, it can happen from times of drought where they seek moisture. It can be times where the ground has become saturated where they come up. But yes, they can flatten out, and you can find them in locations that are very easy for them.
So it doesn't mean just because you have a pest control service that you won't get a roach or you won't get a. They'll show up uninvited, like
they can.
said.
I mean, you should see a lot less activity.
So you do the perimeter outside. I hear now that the whole key is you do the outside, and then you. I mean, what's your process?
Well, everything in the industry has shifted, and now a lot of it is what's called integrated pest management. And basically, what that means is you want to apply your insecticides to target the insect that you are trying to handle without over applying to where you affect other parts of Mother Nature that could be beneficial and so forth. Now, pesticides are unforgiving. They don't really know the difference between that nice praying mantis, and a cockroach. So when you spray, it will, cause harm to whatever insect it is. Now, typically, yes, a lot of it now has geared much more towards the exterior. Typically spraying along, the base of the property, tracing around the doors and the window frames, and spraying the underside of the accessible eaves is typically going to be your primary practice now for pesticide application.
That's your line of defense. So basically outside.
Absolutely.
You keep the outside treated, then they can't get inside usually.
Right.
Or they get inside and die.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Now, there could be certain instances where somebody is having concerns on the inside, where things have to be applied on the inside. But the days of just going in and spraying every single baseboard and going all around the full property, a lot of that has fizzled out now with the integrated pest management and the changes that have occurred.
So any advice, with food, with keep everything, I guess, closed? I know. You get those silverfish. Fish.
Right.
If you have a lot of cardboard boxes, I found them in the garage one time.
Absolutely.
And they're like, get rid of all these cardboard boxes.
Sure.
And inside, if you have cardboard boxes inside the house,
right?
Any tips on how to keep them from showing up?
Sure. Yeah. There's
these flies.
Yeah. There's a lot of different things that you can actually do to help. With pest infestations. One of the major ones is, in your pantry, putting things inside of a plastic container or glass containers. That definitely helps. Just like you were saying about the silverfish, they're very common in attics. I see it where people store boxes up there and they start getting tunneling and weaving from them, feeding on that. Putting things in plastic totes, plastic bins. Obviously keeping a tidy house, cleaning up after spills. How
about the drains, man?
Right.
Sometimes they come up through like an unused.
Sure.
What's the tip on that? I heard somebody said just put water in the tub and
right.
Any tips on that?
Yeah, I mean, if it's a home that's like, let's say it's like a condominium where someone's living both the best worlds and only here for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
Then it's typically good to saran wrap, around like the toilet, because the AC will pull the moisture out and you can get rodents that can pass up directly through that. Cockroaches can also pass directly through drains.
Yeah, I tell people flush it before you go out of town, like pour bleach instead of water.
The drain up.
Turn off the water, empty the thing, fill it with bleach.
Right.
Lift up the seats, put saran wrap.
Absolutely.
And let it go, because the gases won't dry it up, and
absolutely right.
It won't look nasty when you come back.
That's correct. Now, if it's an instance where you have a home, and let's just say it's guest bathrooms that, the kids are gone, you're not, it's just, you're living there, and all of a sudden, you have a bathroom that's not being used that much, then it's as easy as just pulling the drain up, keeping it in the plungered position, I guess it would be called. That also helps. But, as far as keeping food limited to certain locations, obviously cleanliness is a huge part. You don't want to eat all over the place and have crumbs and just leave them and all of that. But normally under normal circumstances, if a property's sprayed and treated and the cleanliness part of it's there, most of the time most people are pest free.
I mean, in Florida, these little ghost ants show up out of nowhere. You see a trail of them and then they disappear.
Right.
Is this all just from, I guess, Florida rain?
It is, and one thing with ghost ants, ghost ants can appear at any given point in time. A lot of times what happens is when clients have ghost ants, it's not that they did anything wrong. They pop up. But one thing that they usually do that can aggravate the problem is trying to spray it themselves.
Oh.
Ghost ants actually have multiple queens in their colony. And if they are attacked with an abrasive product, like if somebody sees them trailing and they take some Clorox cleanup and spray them, they're attacking them. And when they attack them, they let off, stress signals and pheromones. So basically what happens when somebody takes that approach or they start spraying or treating, what will happen is the soldiers will start clustering around some of the queens in the colony, and they'll do what's called satelliting or budding. And that's basically where they will start to migrate their colony in certain portions of different parts of the house. So if it's gone about the wrong way as far as treatment goes, or somebody's spraying them, whatever, they can actually cause that to start migrating to other parts of the home.
So you guys have a
There's certain class products that are used. Yeah, and it's very similar to a termite treatment.
Interesting.
Yep, it's very similar in the treatment that you would use. It's not the same as a termite treatment, but the product that's used for termites kind of works the same way. It's meant to be odorless, colorless, tasteless, to not allow them to realize that they've come in contact with it. And then through their normal communications after they pass through it, and they kind of wish-wash that product back and forth, and it kind of kills them off. So there's certain pesticides that really need to be used for ghost ants.
And again, I've sold many homes in this area, and whether I'm the listing agent or the buyer's agent, it doesn't matter. You guys show up, and I got to compliment you. Your guys, Jonathan, and they're all really, or is it Matt? I'm sorry, Matt.
It'd probably be Matt.
Matt, and then you have a younger gentleman too. I met.
There's
the other day. He's like, he was looking for a home too.
Oh, okay. That may have been Chris, possibly.
Yeah, probably Chris. But I've met a lot of these guys, and they're so thorough. I tell you, I got to compliment you on that. They take their time, and they find things. Again, I've been to, actually, I think it was you. They found a roof leak, and I bring the roofer, and the roofer can't find it. Then I had to bring you back to show them where it is.
Oh, jeez.
And they crawl the attic. They're like, there's nothing there. And I'm like, there is a leak in that fascia, and they go outside, they can't find it. So I gotta compliment you on that. It's amazing.
I appreciate that. It means a lot coming from you.
How you guys locate these. One other last thing before I drag this on is, again, based on some of my experience, is German roaches. The worst thing that could happen is the darn German shore. So some people move out of an apartment, another person moves in, and they come in with their boxes, and apparently they bring in a couple of German roaches. And what happens? Tell me. I've seen it.
That couple turns into a bunch real quick.
Yeah, and they're the worst thing, I tell you. I've had the worst experience.
Yes, German cockroaches are a difficult one. And even from a pest control company standpoint, it's not like something where you're just going to spray it one time and poof, they're gone. It doesn't work like that. With German cockroaches, that's the best way to say it. They're good mothers because, excuse me, they will actually guard their eggs up into the point before it's about to release, before they release it. Whereas like an American roach or a palmetto bug, people like to call them, they'll discard their ootheca, which is the capsule of the eggs. They'll discard them anywhere. Whereas the German cockroaches will hold on to them right up to the point where they're about to. They also reach sexual maturity at a much quicker rate. So, before you know it, a problem can get out of hand quickly. Now, they can be hitchhikers. Absolutely. They're not native to here. Typically,
I've never seen any hitchhike.
No. Well, sometimes people, if they like to go to yard sales, garage sales, thrift stores, you can pick something up. Absolutely.
Wow.
So people sometimes pick up things from appliances, can bring them in.
Appliances, guys. I had a dishwasher that they were living in. We had to throw the whole dishwasher out.
Wow.
Seriously.
Yeah,
they kept coming out of them. They kept spraying. There was more and more and more.
Yeah, and you can reach a certain point where that happens. I've done homes before where I've sprayed them, and actually seen them cruising around inside of the clock on the stove. And you could spray to your blue in the face, but you're never going to get that product into those locations because with electronics, you're limited as a pest control company what you can do for liability reasons.
And I hear they like it dark and warm.
They sure do.
And that's where they hide.
Right. Yeah. Now, where I was, with German cockroaches, that does require a constant rotation of products. That does require a lot more frequent follow-ups in between normal service visits. And that is a much stronger product that's used. A lot of times when you're treating for those, you want to get everybody out of the house for a while. You're using a much stronger insecticide stack. Things become airborne a little more. You have to get much more aggressive. It's not just like a regular routine maintenance type of pest.
So again, how to avoid getting those is watch what you bring into the house, basically.
Right. And same thing, if somebody was to purchase a home, let's say they purchased a home and the previous person had them, and let's say they move out of that home and they discover it.
Yeah.
The main thing to do is get somebody in there as quick as possible, because the faster you can treat it, the quicker you can get results versus trying to do at-home remedies or tinkering around with little different products. It's a very difficult task for a homeowner to get. But obviously cleaning is a huge, thing. Going through all the cracks and crevices, keeping pantries clean, pulling out the refrigerator is another huge one. A lot of times there's a lot of debris that builds up back behind those refrigerators, clearing all that out. Tidiness.
Things
it's
a lot of
thing with
people
insects.
don't do. Yeah, it falls in between the stove, the food.
Correct.
They just
and you have to realize, a small crumb is like a steak this big off the grill to you or I, to them. So no matter how clean you keep it, you're always going to have a food source. But eliminating that as best as possible really makes a big difference.
Thank you. And you also offer a service for yard.
We do.
Spray, you said.
Yes. We're full service. We do everything from lawn spraying, shrub spraying, like I said, pest control, bed bug treatments, pretty much any and everything that's pest control related. And
so, John, real quick, I know it's the end of the show. Just how did you get into pest service? Tell us a little bit about your family, and then I'll let you go.
All right.
Well, where did you come from? How did you end up in this area?
Yeah, I am from New Jersey originally. My mother was in property management, so they traveled around a bunch, and it led us here to Florida. And originally, my background was actually sales and marketing. That's typically what I had specialized in. And I actually took a sales position with a pest control company. At that time, it was called Middleton. They're bought out by Massey now.
Yeah, I remember.
And I was a sales representative for them for a lot of years. And what was it, 2004 when we had a lot of the hurricanes?
Yeah, he lived in countryside or something, I remember.
Yeah. The
Middleton family.
In 2000, and I believe it was 2004 when we had all the hurricanes that came here?
Yeah.
Okay. In 2004, I got hit pretty hard. People really weren't looking for pest control. We had those hurricanes rolling through. So at that particular point, I migrated it into doing I took a field position with another company doing pest control. And at that point, I kind of just worked my way up. I obtained all the licensing. I became a general manager of that company for a while. And then, for the most part, I migrated to do my own. I was putting in such long hours that when I had my son, typically for the first year, I really didn't see him because I was there early in the morning. I wasn't getting home till late. And I just wanted to make a financial choice to, seek out and do something different. So I took basically the knowledge that I had learned, the background that I had in the sales and marketing, and I just kind of ran with it.
Thank you. So
absolutely.
If you don't mind, go ahead. Imperial Pest Prevention, John is going to give you the company's contact information, website.
Sure.
They can follow you, I guess, on Facebook.
Correct.
You're on social media.
That's correct.
And then a good number that they can. I love that number. I'll let you say it.
Okay. Well, this is a big toll-free one right there, but for advertising. But yes, basically, anybody looking for a pest control company, we'd love the opportunity. Like I said, we service Volusia, Flagler County, even branching off into Sanford and as far north as St. Augustine. Our website, well, actually, a contact phone number, I guess, would be best. Our local number is 386-956-9506. We also have a toll-free number, which is 855-55-PESTS, PESTS. And typically, you can also follow us on Facebook. It's Imperial Pest Prevent. And our website is www.imperialpestprevent.com.
So imperialpestprevent.com.
Correct.
And I am Mr. T, wrapping up another naturally created podcast. I come here without any preparation. I get information for you. If you have any questions in regard to any of this stuff, please follow, my podcast, Wizard of House Podcast. All you have to do is go on Google or go on YouTube. Just put Wizard of House podcast, and you could just listen to it on any podcast platform, or you can actually watch it. We do have the YouTube, so we are doing this with cameras and lights and action. So I appreciate you watching my show. Any questions or anything, you can always reach me at my cell number 386-299-8989. And I'm always here for you. My website is mrtsells.com, mrtsells.com. Thank you again.